PO tonight.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Barbara, you ready?
I was going to have a PO for you, so you
Yep.
get
Yep.
signed it tonight.
Yep.
Barbara, we're going to get started. Okay. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law, I wish to state that on June 10th, 2022, notice of this meeting to the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board and the Upper Township website, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up to and until the closed session portion of this meeting, and will be available on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct the announcement be made part of the minutes of this meeting. Would everyone please stand for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barbara, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Coggins?
Here.
Ms. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Mr. Pankos?
Here.
Mayor Corson?
Present.
Members are present.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the May 23rd, 2022 regular and closed session minutes.
Second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor?
Okay, report of governing body members. Mark, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and fellow committee members. We've been, in Public Works, we've been working on dealing with these nuisance calls that we've been getting, emails and things like that around town, including but not limited to the some of the businesses with the longer grass and the residents with the longer grass. So part of the cost savings that we've come up with in this department, I'd like to introduce Rich Kazmarski. He's over here. He was our recycling coordinator, and he's now taken on the responsibility of the full code enforcement. And he's been working really well with our team so far, handling a lot of these calls. So we're very appreciative of that, Rich. So I just want to introduce everybody to Rich. You'll see him out there riding around. Like I said, our job's not to be heavy-handed. We're out there. We're handling the complaints that are coming in, and they're not going unnoticed. So thank you. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, I think, here for Joey Sharp. He's our seasonal labor. I'd like to make a motion to hire him.
Yeah, that was left off the consent, and I do apologize.
Could we have the rate of pay in the motion as well? It would be $16 an hour.
I believe personnel is here. We can detail
But
that.
it's
in the rest of
it's $16
Oh, then
an
you
hour.
want that language in there? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please,
Yes.
in the motion.
Okay, yeah, sure, we'll make that motion with the $16 an hour for him.
16.
16, yeah.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Carried. In favor?
And on the technology side, we have a meeting set up next week with our consultant to revamp our website. I know it's been acting a lot better now. There's a lot more information going out on it, but we're looking to keep that cutting edge. So
Perfect.
that's all, Mr. Mayor.
John, do you have anything for us tonight?
Nothing this evening.
Kim?
I do have a couple things. So we're moving forward, continuing to plan our 4th of July celebration. I'd like to thank, the Business Association has been reaching out on our behalf to some of the local businesses, as well as some of our local nonprofits, the Historical Society, the Green Team. They're looking to get involved. We have some of the sports organizations are looking to man the dunk tank again. I think we already have two organizations signed up. Probably could use 1 or 2 more of those. In addition to that, I also would like to thank the Business Association for arranging some recent ribbon cuttings and some other kind of outreach to our local businesses. We have had the opportunity to attend a ribbon cutting for Fresh Look Contracting. We have a proclamation letter here for them, which is a day late, but we'll get it to them. We also have another one coming up on the 25th for Maple Tree Gift Shop, which is reopening. It's a former business that will be reopening in Cedar Square. So I think we're all excited to see something new and reinvigorate that area a little bit. They sound like they're planning kind of a big party. They have a radio station involved, and we're looking forward to celebrating them.
they're doing a nice job too. They've got the front of the store all fixed up nice
Yep.
and it looks wonderful.
It looks beautiful. I know they had a soft opening this week, so we're very excited for them and looking forward to support them however we can. One of the other initiatives that we've been working on with the Business Association is recognizing our current businesses who are celebrating landmark anniversaries. So, we have the John Dollard store, their 100th anniversary, which will be, passing, I believe there's a resolution on it, or we issued a proclamation, I'm not sure. what we-
Proclamation we got right now.
We're gonna issue a proclamation for them. We also are looking at some of the other businesses in town that are celebrating some milestone anniversaries, so more to come on that. If you are a local business, or you know of a local business who is celebrating a milestone that you think we need to recognize, please feel free to reach out to myself or the Business Association to help us get in contact with them and be able to recognize their efforts. I also, just an update on disc golf. This has been a great project, and it sort of is snowballing into a bigger project that I'm really excited about. We started off with plans for a 9-hole golf course. The group that we met, we had the original group we met with and additional people in the community from all different age groups, which is kind of exciting. It's not just young people, there's also some seniors that are involved and excited about this. They would like to expand to an 18-hole golf course, and they are actually in the process now of planning a fundraiser so that they would be able to fund it themselves with our assistance with installation and that kind of thing. I believe their plan is to sell off sponsorships for each individual hole, but I'll get more information from them and share that as we move forward. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Kim. Jay, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, a couple things. I want to publicly thank the community once again for their total support of Fire and EMS, especially more Fire, which we recently held our 75th anniversary. The response was outstanding. We had a great event on Saturday. We had a great turnout. The weather held out, and I think everybody had a pretty good time. So I thought that was very telling of the community support that they give our volunteer fire companies and our fire and EMS and our public safety in general. And we certainly appreciate it. Speaking for all the chiefs, I will do that. The lifeguards are starting to become on duty right now. We have plan on 8 stands in Strathmere, 1 in Beasley's Point, which 30 guards. We will have 11 part-time seasonal employees as well, and we're seeking 11 new hires, and some of those are on the agenda for tonight. 5 days a week. Now it's going to be 7 days a week, in Stratford, all the way from May 28th to September 5th, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we go full boat from June 18th to September 5th. In a light of recent events, we got to remind everybody of this, even though we have, for example, this past week, or in recent days and recent weeks, the beach counts have been, like for example, the beach count was 3,260 people on the beach since the last report. They have had 5 incidents in which they needed to fish people out. It's called fish out. People just get them out of the water, assist them out of the water. 1 medical, 1 lost person, and 324 preventative actions, which means they're moving people from one side of the beach to the other due to rips, or they're moving people off the beach, or bringing people closer to the shore due to rips.
Or a storm.
Or a storm, or something along those lines, moving things around. And anybody follows the news at all, either, especially locally, especially in Cape May County, there has been an extremely large number of water rescues at unguarded beaches and after hours, after the guards are gone. They've already lost several people, including one in Wildwood fairly recently. I know I read about a couple of those. I listened to today. Ocean City had another water rescue in the south end of the island. Please, only swim when lifeguards are on duty at guarded beaches. This is pretty serious, and there's no way to predict those rips, and there's no way if you get caught in a rip, it's a problem, and it's going to, no matter where you are, if you're not at a guarded beach, it's going to take people a while to get there to help you out. And a lot of times, the the people that are injured or killed are the people trying to go in and help them. So, without support. So please only swim in guarded beaches. Like I said, I think this is one of the biggest so far preseason, and just listening to the scanner and listening to and reading about some of these things of water rescues off hours that I've ever heard. So please do that. I got a couple other things that I'll have to bring up in closed session that just came to my attention, so we'll bring that up then. And then our EMS, do they want them to give that report now, or do you want to wait to her?
We can go through and get some of the other quicker ones, and then we can move through on that report. So we have it listed under new business, but if
Okay, no, let's
she
wait
would like
for
to
that.
give, she also has your call numbers, with the township's call numbers for transports, and we can roll over.
Yeah, we can wait on that, that's fine. Thank you, I think that's all I have.
All right. One thing I have here, I have an executive order pursuant to the authority vested in me as mayor of the Township of Upper. I hereby make the following appointments to the Upper Township Planning Board pursuant to the provision of the Municipal Land Use Act of the State of New Jersey. Class 2 member of the board, Gary DeMarzo, is hereby appointed to the unexpired term of 1 year for DeVita Wines, commencing January 1, 2022 and expiring December 31st, 2022. That's all I have at this time. And we'll move on with the agenda here. Gary, do you have anything for us tonight?
It's been a busy 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so you can hear what the committee has been doing. Under the direction of the mayor and Committeewoman Hayes, I've been continuing with land use and the New Jersey Transit Authority relative to our exit 20 progress. So they keep pivoting back and forth to each other. NJTA has to appoint a new director for that commission, and he is not. He had retired this past month, so the deputy has not been instilled yet. We are continuing to work on it. Bolstering what Committeewoman Hayes has said about the July 4th, we continue to work with Larry Cole, who is the key holder for the July 4th festival. He is diligently and every day putting that vendors list together, putting that the activities list together. He's been doing a fantastic job. Going through EMS this evening is going to talk about the LifeLink program. I believe myself as a police officer, and I believe Ocean City has a similar one. So I think you're going to enjoy that particular presentation. We have Mr. Jones, who is going to talk about some emergency management ordinances, or not resolutions. We have 2 resolutions. We have Mr. Kamansky. I also want to, how do you pronounce it? Kazmarsky. Yeah, I pronounce it in 6 different phonetic ways 11 times a day. So I just want to support what Committeeman Pancos has said, working the last 3 weeks with Rich. Responsive, facilitative. I don't know if anybody's in the audience that has sent us emails relative to problem properties. Rich goes out immediately. We've identified 2 or 3 properties that have been aloof for these past year or so, and we've drilled down on them, and we have taken accountability to those. It's just been fantastic. This week's been filled with high grass and those type of complaints. No nuisance complaints. No nuisance complaints for the animal houses or any kind of noise complaints from residents. So I have not received any. Rich has not received any. So we are continuing to refine that enforcement, that 24-hour overview, and I have to thank him. It was truly a breath of fresh air for the time and effort that he's putting into it. So stop calling me, start calling Rich, because he's the one out on because all the emails go to him anyway. So thank you very much. Rhonda in personnel has been working overtime on some issues that we'll discuss. Mrs. Ludi has been hammering out the new budget and our vision for 2023 coming up. Mr. Dietrich again is working on some big grants, some green grants. Mrs. Young in her clerk's office has just been fantastic. I staged there today. The AC was out, so we all had a good schwitz, and we were very sweaty over there. And Mr. Young, Mr. Reeves. Sorry, wrong Dan. I spoke to him earlier today. Just been fantastic. So that's my administrative overview, and then we'll get to the chief if you want to present during open session. You want to present now? It's up to. Let's go through the consent agenda. Get rid of those, and just kind of move through it. So.
Okay, Barbara, you have anything first?
Well, I just have one thing, if I could have a motion to accept the reports submitted by the different departments, first.
I'll make a motion to that effect. We accept reports number 1 through 9 that are listed on our agenda.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
How about
And then I have couple of other items.
house calls?
Item number 42 is listed as facility use. That item, I would like to remove that from the agenda. There was a request for more review on that before we place that on the agenda. So I would like to remove that from tonight's agenda. And I really don't have anything else to report tonight. I will have one comment before we move forward with the consent agenda, but other than that, I'm good.
Dan, do you have any?
No reports.
Okay. Paul, do you have any?
Only that I had reported earlier that we did receive the grant from Sustainable Jersey regarding having an EDF fellow for the summer. I'm actually tomorrow they've been working on some stuff based on the information that I sent him. He's actually going to be in town hall tomorrow morning for a meeting to kind of go over some of the stuff and kind of go over his game plan of what he's going to try to get accomplished over the summertime. So hopefully I'll be able to report to the committee at the next meeting on what he's going to be focusing on and what he sees based on some of our preliminary information and moving forward.
Perfect.
That's all I had.
I just have one item this evening. This is, had a request from our insurance broker, Marcia McLennan, to sign a business associate agreement. This is something we haven't signed for a little while. We have signed in the past, but this just really has to do with our HIPAA obligations and the rights of our insurance company. So just need a motion, if you're okay, for me to go ahead and sign this and get this back to our broker.
Make that motion.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, moving right along, we have a presentation here. And I guess we're going to ask, we have a couple members of the church, Bob Rowland and Donna, on the Board of Trustees. We're going to ask them to come up. We're going to do a presentation. Let me read this here. Whereas on June 1st, 1922, the First Methodist Episcopal Church, Strathmere, was incorporated by a small group of dedicated church members looking to provide a place for worship for the seaside town. And whereas after obtaining a generous land offer, the cornerstone of the building was set in September 1922. Whereas we give Paul's honor and praise this day for the deep and abiding Christian commitment of those who in faith began this work, and for all those who have given unselfishly during the many years to help the church grow and thrive. Whereas known for its welcoming manner of all denominations of faith, the entire community has benefited the fine Christian influence of the Strathmere United Methodist Church has exerted through the years, and many facets of outreach and practical assistance to the residents of Strathmere. Whereas it is a pleasure to extend our esteem and best wishes to the members of the congregation on this memorial occasion of the 100th anniversary. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Upper, the County of Cape May, the State of New Jersey, the Township Committee does hereby commend Strathmere United Methodist Church upon this important occasion and many years of service to our community. Given under our hands and the seal of the Township of Upper, the 23rd day of May, 2022. Bob and Donna, thank you. Come on up here. Let's get you guys in the picture. What an honor. And if anybody has not been to the church, it's a phenomenal, beautiful church. The weekend of the 22nd, there's going to be an anniversary celebration, 3-day event. And I encourage everybody to come out and see our Strathmere's local little gem of the church. Donna?
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, and the whole council here. And we really, it's a real honor to be recognized with our little church, and it will certainly find a prominent place in our church. And as you mentioned, our church is basically a Methodist church, but in the summertime become very non-denominational. We have guests from other religions. And as Mayor Corson was saying, we have a 3-day centennial celebration on June the 24th through the 25th. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we're welcome all of you to come and join us. And we will also welcome you to come to our little church on any given Sunday. We have a hymn sing at 9:15 and service starts at 9:30. So please, it's still welcome to come.
It's a beautiful period church from the 20s.
It is.
All right, let's, I guess we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. But Barbara, you said you had,
I just have one of the items. Before we move forward with the consent agenda, I just wanted to make one comment on item number 26, which is the renewal of the alcoholic beverage licenses for this year. 3 licenses are not included on this agenda, on this resolution, which are the Deauville Inn, Willard Liquor, and Lavares. Those licenses will be considered, provided we have all the documentation that we need. They will be considered on the June 27th meeting. So that being said,
One more comment, Barb. Number 12, that was the grant
yes.
that was processed.
Yeah, that's the grant application for MAC.
Good. Number 19, Mr. Jones, and I believe you can address 30 if there's any questions on those particular OEM funding grants and applications.
19 is just a memorandum of understanding to update, has been done since 2013. So they need new signatures and a new memorandum of understanding moving forward.
okay.
And 30, or the
Number 30 is paperwork to move forward to file grant paperwork for the money that we receive from New Jersey OEM each year, $10,000. And this just is approved for me to forward the grant application to them and get the process started for fiscal year 2022.
Okay, so we can move forward, these?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
All resolutions listed below are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. If the mayor or any committee member wishes a particular resolution to be considered separately, it will be removed from the consent agenda and acted on separately.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Approve all items number 1 to 32.
Okay.
next item is a resolution to be acted on separately, and I believe, heard Mr. Reeves, but I believe we're going to hold that resolution until after the closed session.
We are, and so we could either go to closed session now, and then we could have a vote on it, and we could come back into public session, or we could wait until the closed session and move it.
And that was the information I gave to you, Mr. Dodd, and graciously kind of passed it down the line relative to the new hire and everybody having an understanding as to how she's coming back to the organization and the concerns that you all memorialized.
So if we're going to,
I'd recommend we do it after.
if we're going to do this in closed session, I make a recommendation we postpone it until our closed session portion of the meeting. We're not going to empty the room or go anywhere. We're just going to chug through this resolution and get this done. All right, we're moving on to the ordinances, I guess.
Item number 34, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 10, 2022, and ordinance amending revised general ordinance, chapters 12, 19, and 20. I believe Mr. Reeves has some.
Before we get too far into this, I have a conflict, and I believe Jay Newman has a conflict. So
Correct.
at this point, we're going to turn it over to Kim, I guess. So Jay and I have to sit back and relax for a minute.
Understood, thank you. And just for the record, Mr. Corson and Mr. Newman, as having conflicts, will not be participating in the discussion or voting on this measure. So with that said, Barbara has read the title of the ordinance. I had been fielding a threat of potential litigation regarding the proposed ordinance and the language that was proposed. The purpose of the ordinance is to revise the township's campground ordinance, which is currently part of the Upper Township Code, but many of the sections have not been updated since the 70s. So with that said, I, in conjunction with comments the committee made, as well as working with Mr. Dietrich and Mr. DeMarzo, have proposed some amendments to the amendment, you might say, and specifically under, and I have provided the committee with a marked up copy of the ordinance with the proposed changes in red line. And so under section 12-1.7 fees, the proposal is to remove the per site fee that would be based upon the type of the campsite and instead impose a flat fee for each additional campsite. So the new fee as amended would be $250 for the campground, $6 for each campsite. I'm sorry, excuse me. The new campsite fee would be set by resolution of the committee. In the absence of a resolution of the township committee, the additional fee for each campsite would be $6. The purpose is, again, the township has not revisited the campground fee in at least 48 years. So the committee determined it was time to revisit that fee and determined it would be helpful to set the fee by resolution on an annual basis. But in the event a future committee would, not this committee, mind you, but a future committee would ever forget to pass a resolution, there would already be a default fee in the ordinance itself so that the fee would not be in question. So that would be one change. The other change would be to section 12-1.1 on the first page. This is a clarification. It's intended to be a clarification, so the general approach of the ordinance is to adopt by reference the New Jersey State Health Code that is applicable to campgrounds. However, that health code actually only applies to what's referred to as proprietary campgrounds, defined by the regulations as condominium or cooperative campgrounds. My understanding is it is the intent of the committee that these regulations, the New Jersey health regulations, will apply to all campgrounds in Upper Township, regardless of the form of ownership. And so, while I believe that is probably implicit in the current language of the ordinance, my suggestion is that we clarify that to make it explicit that this adopted set of health codes is going to apply to all campgrounds. So those are the only changes proposed to the ordinance. And so, procedurally, the committee can certainly have their own discussion on the proposed changes. The committee may either open this ordinance to public comment now and continue that public comment at the next meeting as well, or may choose to forego public comment tonight and move it to the next meeting. In the event any amendments are approved, the ordinance may not be adopted as amended until the following meeting after additional publication.
Okay. So for John and Mark, do you have any comments on the amendments as suggested?
No, just to clarify, we're bringing this current with surrounding jurisdictions. I
So it's
think. From the 19 whatever up to.
you might get an answer that's more complicated than you wanted, Mark, but the answer is I looked at the current existing township campgrounds code, which again has the same scheme where it adopts a state code that was actually codified in 1964. I read the introductory report for that 1964 code, which basically said campgrounds are becoming a new hip modern thing here in 1964. Towns need to be able to regulate these things. And that was what led to the the private campgrounds code that formed the basis for the current township code. So in the meantime, yes, New Jersey has significantly updated its regulations. New Jersey state regulations apply in the township regardless of any action on the part of the township. However, with that said, again, the specific health codes we're looking at apply to proprietary campgrounds, which are campgrounds owned in the condominium or cooperative form of ownership, not to traditional campgrounds that are corporately owned or family owned. And so, but yes, I think calling it a modernization is a fair description.
Thank you. No, nothing further.
John?
Nothing for me.
So I think it makes sense for us, now, let me use the right language, we're going to postpone, correct?
Yes.
Postpone it for this meeting, and then the following meeting, we'll open it up for public comment and hopefully final adoption at that point.
Understood. And so then the committee, assuming the committee would like to adopt the proposed amendments, someone should make a motion to postpone public hearing until the next meeting, the June 27, 2022 meeting, and to approve or adopt the amendments as written.
I'll make that in form of a motion.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
And Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And that meeting, I was just pulling this out so I could tell you, that meeting on the 27th is going to be at 6:30. Okay. All right, moving on, item number 35. Public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 14, 2022, an ordinance revising job classifications and titles and amending chapter 5 entitled Personnel of the Code of Upper Township, and this is also a public hearing.
My colleagues have any questions? Second.
Nope.
All right, this time we'll open it up to the public. Does anybody have any comment on ordinance number 14 of 2022? Yes, sir. You're going to have to state your name and record for the... Over here? Yes.
You're revising job classifications, existing classifications, is that correct?
Your name for the record, please.
Huh?
Your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, name and address, sorry.
That's it.
Andrew Salerno, 27 Caledonia Drive. Hello, everybody. First time here ever in the 40 years I've lived in the township.
Yes. The question-
My question is, you're revising job classifications. Specifically, what job classification are you revising? And is it substantial or just cleaning up wording?
Basically, it's just clean up wording. Dan,
Yes, excuse me, I will pull that up. So I would be happy to summarize the contents. This has been published publicly as required by statute. We are adding the position of laborer part-time. We're adding the position of laborer seasonal. That is the effect of ordinance number 14-2022. And just by way of additional explanation, each time the township hires a new employee, they're given a job title, and the salary ordinance has a title to correspond to each employee. And so the purpose of this particular ordinance is to increase the number of titles to meet the needs of the township.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other public comment on ordinance number 14 of 2022? Hearing no public comment or any more public comment, we'll close the public portion of this ordinance and ask for a motion to introduce.
I'd like to make a motion that we
Adopt.
adopt ordinance number 14 of 2020.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 36, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 15 and ordinance amending ordinance number 18, 2021, known as the salary ordinance for the calendar year 2022.
At this time, does anybody have any questions? Will we open it to, obviously, we have to set a salary now for the laborer position, or this is what this does. So we'll open ordinance number 15 of 2022 to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll close the public portion for this ordinance and ask for a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion we adopt ordinance number 15 of 2022.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion's carried. 37, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 16 and ordinance amending revised general ordinance, chapter 2, administration of the Code of Upper Township.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments?
Not from this side.
No, sir.
Dan, you want to recap this real quick?
The basically sole impact of this ordinance number 16-2022 is to delete the position of Assistant Township Administrator in its entirety from the code. I understand that this position had been added to the code previously, several months ago. The Township Committee was considering how to address the future administration of the township, and ultimately has now determined that position is not necessary and is removing it from the code.
All right, this time we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone that would like to publicly comment on ordinance number 16 of 2022?
Natalie Neese, block 476, lot 29. I don't understand why you would make a position for administrative assistant and then 3-4 months later totally delete it. Why not just leave it there? You know, in case we ever want to hire somebody. I mean, my concern is that somebody will be taking on jobs that like maybe they shouldn't have.
Well, if there is a need for an assistant administrator, we can put the position back just as easily as we removed it. It was put there once, it can be put there again. At this time, there's no need to fill it.
What was the need to put it there to begin with?
We were not sure what direction the township was going to take, so it was put there in January, and now it is being removed.
Well, for some reason, I think it had something to do with Scott Morgan and what you did with his position and bringing in Gary DiMarzo. So I'd just really like you to be more forthright about it And I really don't think it should be removed. I think there's no
I thought you were the one that was
Just leave it
advocating
there.
for it to not even be on the first time when I went through the meeting. Weren't
I'm
you
sorry, I didn't hear
advocating-
what you said.
I'm saying, I remember reviewing the tapes, weren't you advocating for it not to be solidified?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that?
Well,
Not solidified.
yeah, well, we're not gonna fill the position. It's a position we feel we don't need on the books. It was a decision to remove it, and thank you for your input.
Was there a salary involved in that position?
Yes, and that's been removed as well.
Thank you.
And this is Andrew from 27 Caledonia.
Andrew Salerno, 27 Caledonia Drive. You're deleting the position of Assistant Administrator, correct?
Yes,
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
thank you. And the salary that was associated with that position goes back into our general fund and is not spent. Yes. All right, is there any more public input on this? Hearing no more public input on ordinance number 16 of 2022, we will look for a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 16 of 2022.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pancos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 38, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 18, an ordinance authorizing the sale of lands for block 306, lot 5.
I'll move that we introduce ordinance number 18 of 2022 and schedule a public hearing and final adoption for the, what is it, what meeting?
The
we
public
had?
hearing and final adoption will be on the 13th.
Yeah, 13th of July. Yeah, we've got to wait one second.
11th day of July.
Yeah.
11th of July, whatever it is, 11th of July.
That's good.
Okay, Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pancos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 39, under new business, Tuckahoe Volunteer Fire Company request for emergency hybrid beacon agreement.
We've had discussion numerous times, Paul. What's,
Well, I think it's the same thing that we got back before was, they're finally willing to put up a beacon, but they're looking for a cost share. And they're looking for, essentially for $25,000, whether it comes from the township or the fire company. They're just looking for somebody to come up with the $25,000 to put up the warning beacon.
Who's going to maintain it? I think we talked about this before. Who's maintaining going on? I mean, I never get what they call it.
I think, obviously it's a good thing. There's an issue there with the fire trucks when they pull out on the road.
And backing in.
And backing in. There seems to be some excessive speed limit through the center of Tuckahoe.
However, not to cut you off, Mr. Mayor, I do not think that the township or fire company should have to cost share something on a state highway that they did a lot of renovations to without a lot of input from the township and the Tuckahoe Fire Company. They just did it, including taking some of their land away. So that is my opinion, and I'm not speaking for Tuckahoe Fire Company, but I also think that the state should put it in and not be looking for a cost share.
I'll reach out to find out what where it went awry, who decided that we needed to pay for a state highway.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and I'm not sure, it was back on my prior township committee days, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of this stuff went on then, and they were rebuilding Route 50, and this is the kind of stuff that was brought up, and they done this.
We wanted it then.
Yeah.
And it did not happen then. We actually asked for the crosswalk there too, in the
Yes.
center of Tuckahoe. We asked for a pedestrian crossing thing there, and that has not moved off square one. With buddy old Tuckahoe banker, we asked for
They have crosswalks there, but
Crosswalk there, because it's a
we asked
curve.
for some stuff there too. So maybe if we can address both of these issues at once with the state, but it's.
Now, as for whether it's needed or not, I don't think there's any question that it's needed.
I
A big part is not only pulling out of that driveway, but also backing in when they get back.
And I think
You don't have a lot of room there.
we do have, owe it to our community, if it does mean cost sharing, I think that's something we need to look at, and I think the state should bear the brunt of it, no doubt about it. But I don't think we should eliminate it off the radar if it's a $25,000 question.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let me get a definitive answer from the
Yes.
state that they're not gonna pay for it, and then we can go from there. So if the no's an answer, they give me a no, then we'll work from the no. But right now, I know Paul has spent countless hours going back and forth with the state, and they just keep deferring and punting to various offices. So
Punching the air.
we'll
Yes.
drill down together.
All right, item number 40, Local Emergency Planning Committee Review of Emergency Operating Plan. And that's-
This is another OEM issue that's being handled by Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, you want to give us the short on it?
Yeah, every year, there's 4 quarters to the grant money that we receive, and it's on the state's fiscal year. So there's 2 quarters in 1 year, 2 quarters in the next. Every year, we have to review our emergency operating plan and our ESF functions. So it has not been done for fiscal year 21. The plan was updated and redone by the county and then to the state in February of 2021, but we need to review it. If there's no changes, that is fine. If there's no changes. But it just needs to be on the agenda. It's been reviewed, and at this point, there's no changes to our EO rate.
Are you requiring that by resolution?
I need it on the agenda and minutes in the meeting and forward it to the state for our 4th quarter because we need it for fiscal year 2021.
Has it been primarily done by minutes, or should we more formally adopt it by resolution?
Either way, it's been formally done, as far as I can go back, it was done, it was put on the agenda, it was forwarded on the agenda with the minutes attached.
Ms. Young, your preference?
It was, I believe, was there a motion when we looked at that? Motion
That was
to
motion.
accept it, I believe.
I think there was.
I think as long as we have a motion to accept it, we'll be okay.
Okay, let's get it on the next agenda and we'll put it, under the,
Or you want the motion tonight?
Yeah.
We'd like it tonight because it has to be in by the end of June.
well, I'd like to make a motion, then we accept the
Very good, good call, Mayor.
You're a smart
Mr.
guy.
Jones' report there.
I'll second that.
We saw the redness in Mr. Jones' head, and that was the indicator that we needed it tonight.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Panka?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried to accept the OEM's EOP. Item number 41, EMS Lifeline Program.
Well, I have Chief Coker here and Deputy Chief Lentz is here. First, we'd like to just kind of hear a quick status report, which we kind of put in, memorialize in our reports, administrative reports. But on top of that, then you can kind of talk to the committee about what we've been talking about, the Lifeline program.
Okay. So far for the month of June, we're about 61 calls for service. 20 of them being BLS, 14 being ALS, the rest being BM by refusals or fire calls. The folks that don't know the difference between BLS and ALS, we are a BLS unit, we are a basic life support unit. ALS units come out of hospitals, they're the folks that can administer medications outside of our scope of practice of what we can administer. We're about 80 calls ahead of where we were this time last year. Our only notable stop
nice thing is if somebody living by themselves falls or something of that nature, and you can't reach them, there's a wellness check that follows up, and it will save lives. It has saved lives. So it's a good program.
Melissa, are they required, do they call in or do you call out?
We are going to call them for the reason of if it's, for the most part, you have myself in the office Monday to Friday, there's Mike in the office, but if it's a Saturday or Sunday that one of us isn't there, if they call and the crew's on call, there's nobody answers the phone.
Okay.
So that's why we're going to just swap that part.
Okay.
And we're gonna call them.
I deal with an organization in Atlantic County that's volunteer-based, that does sort of something similar. They're not medical, they're just volunteers that reach out to people, and you can, like their doctor's office can get them put on the list, or, so I'll get you some information about them. You could reach out to them for some help too, of, being able to expand it a little bit. Maybe we could touch on some of our church groups or other organizations to support you guys as it gets bigger.
Yeah, Chief, I think it's a great program. It's a great community outreach. I know you guys are working your butts off out there, so thank you guys for all you do.
And I can tell you how, just as a lieutenant and myself as an officer and a patrolman with the city of Wildwood, how useful it was. It truly was useful. It did bring some comfort, and it does illuminate a lot of the problems, because if they're not calling in every 24 hours and they're laying somewhere in the house, they only have that 24 hours of that incapacity. So it was a fantastic program. When I used it and was detailed to it, I'm sure that the Ocean City has the same success. So my suggestion to you is to look towards other municipalities. Don't reinvent the wheel. Grab what they got. I do like the fact that you're going to be proactive and call them. And the component that I was curious on, who actually responds, you've answered with the buy-in from the New Jersey State Police. So I thank you.
All right, thank you.
Shall we have a motion to accept Melissa's proposal for the program?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Please go roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Campus?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 43, Upper Township Green Team.
Okay, at our next meeting, we will have a resolution appointing the green team. I have a couple phone calls I want to make and try to refine a few more members, but that's it. I think it's going to be beneficial to the township to get the green team back enacted. So, that's all.
Okay. Item number 44, National Opioid Class Action Settlement.
I guess I'll take it. I wasn't sure if Dan was gonna take it or myself. We received, as you know, we've had discussion on this. There was litigation, where the township was part of, an opioid settlement, that the state was involved with. The Attorney General has now determined, what towns will receive, the amount of money the towns will receive. Upper Township is going to receive $1,747. They are specific in how we use the money. It has to be used in treatment, prevention, or other strategies, and they spell out all of it. So I'm just looking for direction from you on how you would like to use the $1,700.
Can we give it to Mac?
I believe so.
I think we have somebody in the rescue squad, but maybe want to comment here.
For their program.
So the state is now requiring us to
Leave behind.
leave behind Narcan whenever we have overdoses.
Yeah.
So this came out of nowhere, so needless to say, this was not budgeted in my budget this year for medication. So we just did those kits, and I wanna say they were somewhere, yeah, it was somewhere around $1,000 for me to buy the Narcan and supplies that we have to carry and to leave behind. So I'm not trying to steal your money, but.
What happens to the money?
Is that something?
It's not gonna go too far, but I mean, I certainly.
Is that something that's,
It'll recoup what we spent.
is that something that's, we're allowed to spend it on?
I will check that, but I believe that we probably could.
'Cause that was a hard
I mean,
pocket.
part of, one of the criteria is prevent misuse of opioids. So if we're leaving Narcan, I would think that that would be prevention
Yeah, that's a good point, but I don't have a problem with it going there.
It's not
If
a-
the state drops this on you, what happened to the state mandate, state pay?
So they dropped it on us, we got it in place because we had to get it in place quick.
Right.
We spent the money, and now they're like, oh, I think we're gonna start giving you Narcan for free.
Okay.
We don't know how long that's going to last, or when we're going to actually see it, or how much we're going to see.
Well, I mean, Narcan is not a prevention, that's a parachute. Prevention, if we could use it for education, prevention, I mean,
Expiration on the kits?
Yes.
So what are they good for, a year?
Depends on the lot, you know, might go for a year, might go for two.
And what's our usage on that particular product?
Yeah, we're kind of on the low right now, we haven't used, fortunately.
But you've used it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not complaining right now.
Fair enough.
Well, now double it, because
Yeah.
whatever you use, you're gonna have to leave behind too.
Right.
That's, yeah.
I would think that would.
Let Mark look into it.
The chief said that, go ahead. look
I
into
think
it.
that's
Yeah, I
two
think
good
we
plans.
need
I
to
think
look
we
into this and
take
then-
that as a first step, and then MAC if we can't put it there.
well, actually, let's leave this on the agenda for some more discussion,
Sure.
what we can actually spend it on, and have some discussion at the next meeting.
Sure.
All right, what's your pleasure on the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated in full in the minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pankos?
Yes.
Mayor Corson?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, at this point, we're gonna open it up to the public portion, so, come to the mic and state your,
Edward Price, 4 Gardner's Lane in Beasley's Point. I'm like to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and I would like to ask this committee to please look into some regulations on VRBOs. There is a VRBO just one street over from me, and it's already affecting my home. It's only been open for a very short time, and it is in a residential neighborhood. I look at it as a business in a residential neighborhood. It's not something where somebody is occasionally renting. They're renting on every weekend. There are young kids coming to the house. Hasn't been a ton of noise, but they're in and out, and you wouldn't believe how young they look. And they're carrying kegs of beer, and they're carrying cases of beer and other things into the house. There's no regulation in our township currently, as I understand it, regarding VRBOs, and there have been many communities around us that have done a lot of work, and several of the ordinances that they have put forward have been in place for more than 2 years. Egg Harbor Township is one of them, Atlantic City is another one. So it has been done, and I would please ask this committee to look into it, and I would be happy to serve on any committee or give and do any research that you need to get something in place as soon as possible, because I feel it's going to be, it's unbelievable how many cars they bring into your neighborhood. And anybody who doesn't have a VRBO on their street, you need to go over on Bay Air and look on the weekend to what happens to the street and the neighbors, and it's a terrible thing, and it really impacts our quiet enjoyment of our neighborhoods. Thank you very much for your
Thank you, Ed.
attention.
We are aware of it. It's been an ongoing problem. Our zoning officer has been there, and it is on the radar, and we will,
Thank you very much.
Members of Township Committee, my name is Ray Wendt. I'm a partner with the law firm of Nemad, Davis & Goldstein. I'm here on behalf of the Bayberry Cove Condominium Association, Block 599, Lot 16, as well as the Oak Ridge Condominium Association, Block 600, Lot 62.
excuse me, Ray, if you're going to address the campground issue, Jay Newman and myself have a conflict, so we're going to let you address the other 3 members.
Understood. Just a couple of comments leading into the next round of this amended ordinance. First and foremost, I represent the associations at the direction of the board. There are members of the association who might not have the same point of view as I do and have been directed to address on behalf of the associations as a whole. So there may be other people here that are going to ask for more or different things than I am. Dan Reeves mentioned there was a threat of litigation, potentially. That's me. I'm not here to threaten that right now. We've been working well together. I worked well with Dan Young, and Dan Reeves is a great transfer of that position. And a lot of concessions have been made. The fee situation, I understand that the decks, the square footage of the decks for multiple decks is now in play. I just wanted to address a couple of things leading into what you're about to address in the way of the amended proposed ordinance. And the first is there's a mention of a 15-foot setback, and there's a lot of confusion and quite frankly concern about what that means. I have been advised, and I'll introduce this at the public meeting, that the 15-foot setback refers to the entire perimeter of the campgrounds and not in between each campsite or RV. And I just wanted to point that out and make sure that that's clear as this progresses. The other is there's mention of removal of temporary structures at the end of the season. Again, there is concern about what that means. Do we have to completely disassemble? We're hoping that's not the case. I've been in communication again with Dan Reeves, who's been speaking with Paul Dietrich about what that means practically. I understand that this is a unique situation in that you have a lot of roof overs in campgrounds that you didn't have maybe 25 years ago, and that's why you're addressing this, among other things. And I recognize that the language, as I'm reading it, is supposed to actually protect those who got those permits during that time period when they probably shouldn't have. And I recognize that. I think I've convinced the associations to recognize that for the most part, even though I'm sure you're going to hear otherwise. But there is one particular part of this that I would ask you respectfully, and I don't want to turn this into a public hearing, but there's a mention of the 6-foot wide opening between the addition and the RV. That's at section 19-4.2. A maximum 6-foot wide opening. My understanding is that there are manufacturers that create openings that are wider than 6 feet. And to ask the particular campsite owner to modify the manufacturer's design where their opening might be 8 feet or 9 feet or 10 feet is not practical, it's unsightly, and it's not going to achieve what you're looking to do. I understand what you're looking to do. You're looking to make sure people aren't making mini houses and encouraging year-round residency that's going to create an increase in school enrollment. I get it. Most of the association gets it. We understand that it's happened in other municipalities where even though we shut down for 6 months a year, we have it in our deed restriction. We're going to penalize people who stay longer than 6 months. But we understand the township's concern that not everybody follows the rules. And I know you've been presented with examples from Atlantic County where campgrounds that shut down for 6 months, supposedly, people live there illegally, and the court said, too bad, you got to pay for those kids, even though they're all living there illegally. So we get the point of it. The 6-foot wide opening, though, is a little extreme. We understand the overall scheme, but the 6-foot wide opening really only affects the interior and the homeowner on the interior of the unit. We don't think that that limitation should exist. If the manufacturer provides for a wider opening. So we would ask that you please reconsider that in the 2 weeks leading up. I will continue to speak with Mr. Reeves and communicate and hopefully facilitate something that is a little bit more agreeable. This is a tough pill to swallow. It's hard for people to understand how 2 years ago my neighbor got a roof over and a permit to do it, and today I can't get one. And there's a lot of frustration. And we appreciate your patience in that and understanding. I'll be here in 2 weeks. Hopefully that's the last we hear Dan Reeves say litigation threat in this matter. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the Airbnb issue, please. Good afternoon, Maria Buzz, 6 Gardeners Lane. I would like to thank the township for supporting our neighborhood in opposition to the winery at 8 Bay Air Road. we are asking you to recognize the same quality of life issues regarding the Airbnb at 6 Bay Air: noise, traffic, safety, and transients roaming the neighborhood. Please consider how thrilled you would be to have an investor open a hotel across the street from the place you call home. I came to a zoning board meeting in April thinking surely a hotel was not a permitted use in a residential zone. They suggested calling Solicitor Reeves, who advised coming to this committee, and that if we have an issue, come prepared to discuss a possible solution. That's what we did. At the last meeting, Mr. Falls supplied some articles on what is happening locally. Mr. DiMarzo feels this is strictly an enforcement issue of an already existing code. I respectfully disagree that that is the permanent fix. I do appreciate that if you generate a new code, it will also be an enforcement issue, but it would alert investors what limitations are in place before they snatch up properties for this use in hopes of cashing in at the expense of the neighborhood. Please see the big picture. The Beasley's Point area is a prime spot for investors to buy up properties and alter the neighborhood. There will be no properties for young families and others who want to call this area home. Mr. DiMarzo forwarded me an article regarding Airbnb fighting back against limitations in big cities, and said that this committee has no appetite for spending tens of thousands in litigation to introduce legislation at this time. I am pretty sure Upper Township is not on their radar. Also stated in this article is that rules on short-term rentals are set locally. That's why we asked you to consider examples, particularly in Egg Harbor Township. An editorial from the AC Press in July of 2020, after EHT instituted restrictions, summarizes the issue, and I quote, "To protect neighborhoods, dozens of predominantly residential New Jersey municipalities, such as Linwood, have banned housing rentals for periods shorter than 30 days. That leaves intact the market for renting housing for months and years." End quote. Please consider doing this here. Mr. DiMarzo urged me to call Mr. Knappen Sr., the owner of this hotel, which I did on May 28th. He is apologetic. He's not getting the type of renters he wanted. He wanted to market to families. We can call him with issues. He's trying to get a long-term rental. He may sell it, and yada, yada, yada. I asked him if he would consider putting some limitations on his listing. He indicated he would. He did not, and has actually made it worse. Now this flop house sleeps 14 people, not the original listed 12. Bedroom number 3 now has 1 king bed, 2 queen beds, 3 single beds, 1 bunk bed, 1 hammock, and an air mattress. So, Mr. DiMarzo, talking to the owner proves what I already knew, not gonna make a difference. This is a business, and they are making money. There were 17 very young renters, probably high school age, the weekend of June 3rd. Basically a repeat this past weekend. My neighbors and I watched many cases of assorted alcohol being carried in. They were quiet and on their best behavior. They knew we were watching. If it was noisy, I would have called the police, but this issue is not about harassing the renters. It's about fixing the problem. We would prefer to not have these rentals at all, but we are being realistic. We shared the local examples. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. You need to consider the long-term residents, not just the business people making a buck. The younger Knappen is running for committee on the platform, Keep Upper Township Family Friendly. It's great to see the younger people getting involved and concerned about the place they call home. Likewise, my neighbors and I are concerned about the place we call home. And this hotel, which the candidate participates in hosting, is in direct conflict with these family-friendly values. For the month of June so far, this Airbnb has basically been a party house for underage drinking. As committee members, I'm sure there's times, I saw you tonight, when an issue is difficult to deal with because of familiarity with the parties involved. If that's the case, you must recuse yourself and/or find some proper forum for discussion. This is a big deal for us, and we will be persistent. I feel like the township officials are a responsive group. I urge you to be proactive and not simply encourage us to be reactive and call the police. So can I respectfully ask if you will begin the discussion, and what is the timeline? And how does the public stay informed?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight, and everybody who spoke on the issue. And it's something we need to be proactive on, and I actually have it on the radar. I actually have a copy of a few ordinances, and I was just, with the uniqueness of our community, we can't just take a model ordinance and
I understand.
because we do have weekly rentals on the Barrier Island section of our township. You've heard some testimony about campgrounds today. Campgrounds have weekly rentals, so we have to look at our residential neighborhoods, definitely, and I think we need to model an ordinance such as maybe Tom's River has.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna ask Dan if we can maybe take a look at something.
I have been looking into this issue, and I will certainly happily continue to do so. If it's something you'd like to have a more thorough presentation on.
I think we need a
can send that.
more thorough presentation, because I think it's not gonna go away. The Airbnbs, I mean, you're aware of this one because this one was a problem. I don't think it's the only one in the township.
There's not many in our section, to be honest, I think this is the only one on our side of Roosevelt Boulevard. Airbnb listing. There might be a VRBO, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there might be a couple more, but
Yeah.
it's not something we wanna encourage, I don't think. It's, like you said, it's basically a hotel.
Yeah, it's a hotel, and it's, I invite any of you to sit on my deck on Friday afternoon, because that's when the show starts. And we sit there and we see what's going
A
on.
3-bedroom house with 14 people in it.
17.
17, the septic is not designed for that, the system is not made to support it. It's just gonna be an issue.
Well, I'm glad you're looking into it, and, we're gonna come and keep bugging, unfortunately. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Bonnie Collins from Ocean View. I've been a teacher for over 40 years in 6 different states. There have been hundreds of gun violence incidents, not just in our schools, but in our neighborhoods. I want to know what each one of you is doing to try to reduce the possibility of gun violence in Upper Township. Each of you.
Talking about with the school systems, or
Pardon me?
are you talking about the school systems?
I can't hear you.
Are you talking about the school systems?
I'm talking about, period, gun violence in the communities. What are you doing as the town council to reduce the possibility of gun violence in our community?
Well, everybody would like to think this isn't gonna happen in their community. I'm sure 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of people in Texas that never thought that would happen in their community.
Exactly.
I don't think we're actively doing.
Exactly.
No, I think we actively do things. I think we have to work, we need to address a bigger issue, which is mental health awareness and mental health treatment.
You think mental health is the only solution?
I don't think it's the only solution, but I think it's a big solution, and I think it's at the core of the problem.
So what is Upper Township doing to help in that
So a lot of
area?
the programs that we've talked about tonight, community outreach programs, recreation programs for youth to keep them involved and coordinated with each other. We're, training that we offer to our coaches to recognize youth in crisis. We have EMS is putting on a great summer
And what
camp
does
this
Mr.
summer.
Newman?
I'm still speaking.
I'm sorry, I wasn't hearing an answer I was looking for.
Well, just because it's not the answer you're looking
I've
for
heard,
doesn't make it
I've
not
heard,
an answer.
I've heard lots of, outreach and mental health, but what are we
Okay.
doing about gun
There is all kinds of
violence?
problems. Our bigger problem facing us today, in Upper Township is the drug issue, the opioids. Well, they're using Narcan to revive people. There is problems in our township, and guns, violence is not at our forefront because I'd like to think it's not gonna come here, but we have done studies. The prosecutor's office has done one study after another on vehicle rammings, things like that, security. That's why you come into town hall. You have to be beeped in. You can't just walk into school like the old days. You were a teacher in 6 states schools are a lot different today than they were 25 years ago. Am I right?
And we have a lot more guns in the communities, and what are you doing, each of you, to reduce the possibility of gun violence in our community?
What's the answer you're looking for? Because
There's no correct answer.
Mr. Pancoast.
You didn't want to hear the answer I was giving.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pancoast, what do you think would reduce the possibility of gun violence in our community?
I think mental health awareness is a way to start.
Okay, that's
I
one.
think- Okay, well, you asked me for my answer, and this is what I'm telling you. We review constantly with the state police their operation plans for big events that are put in place with our emergency operations people, along with first aid and you know, their responses, to make sure that they're current and they're in agreements with the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office. That's what we're doing right now. And I think the outreach programs are really a way to affect these youth and people that are having these mental issues.
Mr. Duman?
I agree with Mr. Pankhurst and Ms. Hayes.
Mr. Coggins?
I agree with my colleagues, and I would like to add that I would support the school board providing armed personnel within the school to protect the residents or the people who are present.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think that.
Hi, my name's Linda Diallo, and I'm at 268 Ibis. Hi, Gary. I'm new to all this. I've been here a couple times. Meetings were postponed, and the beat goes on. I don't understand. Well, first of all, I don't understand why the township is opposing the roof overs. I know the attorney was up. I don't get it. Is it the air that it's up there is different? Is something wrong? I don't know. The roof overs.
This is a campground issue. Jay and I have to step up.
Yeah, well, whoever can vote on it. I just don't understand it. It's been done legally, illegally, not our problem. We file permits to have it done, and they're fine. I mean, it's in the world of what we're talking about, guns and opioids and everything else. I mean, this is the least of our problems. And to have a roof over is not a big deal. I don't understand it. And to resell, you get more money, don't you? If the price of the house is more and your taxes, don't you get more money for the township? I mean, I think it's a win-win for everybody. But that said, the fee schedule I'm concerned with, I don't know what that is. Is that more money that we're going to have to pay individually to the township, and what are we getting for it? I know you're going to discuss it or postpone it or bring it back another time, whatever. I don't know. So that's my concern. What are we getting? I mean, I think we're giving up. Maybe the attorney doesn't agree, but I do. And I just think, what are we getting for this fee schedule? I mean, I think we pay enough in taxes for the amount of time we're here. We love it here. The township does a great job. The roads are nice. I mean, I have no complaints, but I just think, like, what's that fee for? And also, somebody said, and I'm not sure because I didn't read the copy or I don't remember reading, are roof overs that were already done in the past, are they going to be okay when I go to sell my place? Because I have one. So am I going to be grandfathered? And I don't want somebody to say, oh, sure. And then when I go to say, oh, no, you need a certificate, you need this, you need that. So that's a concern I have. Do you know, attorney? Do you know if we're going to be grandfathered, the roof overs that are already in?
So I would be happy to address some of the issues you've raised, Ms. Diallo. So, and I actually, of course, am relatively new to representing the township. But Dan Young brought me up to speed, and I've had a lot of discussions with Paul. Paul may be able to address some of these issues better than I can, but your attorney, Mr. Wendt, highlighted one of the primary issues for Upper Township, which is the campgrounds were created to be essentially recreational spaces, and they are zoned as such, and they're designed not for full-time year-round occupancy. One of the biggest issues with the campgrounds statewide, one of the biggest risks to towns, is essentially this. The courts have determined, even if it's illegal to occupy a unit as a year-round dwelling, if there are children there, they must be permitted to attend the local school district. Truthfully, I think that's probably fair. I don't think children should be prohibited from attending school just because of choices their parents make. But from a tax standpoint, it has an extreme cost to the township. Every additional student in the school drastically increases the total revenue that the township has to raise. And so The purpose of a campground, again, is not to make it a little subdivision from a zoning standpoint. It's to make it a nice recreational area where you have nice trailers, nice tents, things like that, where you can use it on a part-time basis, but by design it is not intended for year-round occupancy. And so one of the issues with the roof overs is the more construction you put on and around a trailer that is a travel trailer that's intended for part-time use, the more possible and comfortable it becomes for a year-round dwelling. And so, again, it flies in the face of the purpose in the township permitting campgrounds to exist. And in addition, the purpose of the ordinance now is to dissuade individuals from making their travel trailers into little houses, little cottages. That's one of the purposes. As far as the fees go, I mentioned previously, and again, there will be public hearing on this on June 27th, but as far as the fees go,
Promise?
the township has had a fee for campgrounds since 1972. The last time the fee ordinance was amended was 1974. So they passed it in 72. 2 years later, they revisited it. I don't know what they did. Maybe they increased the fee, maybe they didn't. But that was the last time, per the code, that it was amended. So, 48 years later, we're talking about maybe it's time to increase the fees. So what does that fee cover? That fee covers a service. So the service to be provided by the township via Paul Dietrich, via our code enforcement officer, via other township employees, is to ensure that the campgrounds are complying with the applicable ordinances. So that is a service that the township provides to all of the residents of the township and to the owners of the campgrounds in particular to ensure that the campgrounds are in compliance. And so there are plenty of other times when an individual or a company has to pay a fee for a service that basically involves inspection, health inspection fees, smoke and fire inspection fees, various other fees of that nature. This is another inspection that the township has to do on an annual basis to essentially ensure that no one is living year-round in these travel trailers in the campgrounds. And so that is the purpose of the fee. The reason the fee is being increased is because the impact of the inspections is also increasing. Now that, and a little bit of history here is, unfortunately, under a prior construction official, construction permits were granted to permit these roof overs to be constructed illegally.
Right.
They were not permitted by the zoning, they were not permitted under the construction code. The construction official, and truthfully, I don't even know who was the construction official at that time, so I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but the point being, under the black and white law of the township, they were not permitted. And so, state law essentially says sometimes when towns make mistakes where they permit something to be done and built from a construction standpoint, the town can't then go back after the fact and tell people, you have to tear it down because we gave you an illegal permit.
I understand.
And so part of the purpose of this ordinance is to recognize that we are stuck with the problem that we have, which is these roof overs do exist, and we're not asking anyone to tear them down. But now we need to regulate them more carefully than ever, and we need to make sure that the process is in place to prevent this problem from happening again. So we can't have people just doing what they want. And again, to be fair to the individual owners who obtained construction permits, they thought they were doing the right thing. The fact is they were not following the proper process. Now the process will be in place. Certain construction activities will be permitted. Certain construction activities will not be permitted. Things that are not permitted under the zoning ordinance will require an application to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That process remains in place for owners of the campgrounds, just as it does for owners of single-family dwellings. And so, I'm sorry if I'm getting long-winded, but essentially that is several of the purposes of the new zoning ordinance is to address the problem that previously existed, avoid the significant tax problem that could arise with year-round residency in the campgrounds.
So, if this happened, which I've known Bayberry's been around a long time, I don't know any of this has ever happened that a child came in and did all that. I heard it was from another township or whatever. But doesn't the taxes that we would pay for that child to go to school? And how many kids are we talking about? 1 or 2? I'm not condoning, I'm just saying to understand it better.
The answer is, I'm by no means an expert on the calculation of the taxes, but I'd had this conversation with Dan Young, who had looked at this issue for several years. And he basically told me the tax impact per child is astounding. I think he put a number on it. I don't know if any of the committee knows the number. I think it's like $50,000 per student.
No,
And
just over 20.
I'm
See,
sorry,
I'm not gonna.
20,000.
There is 2,200, over 2,200 campsites in this township.
Yeah, I know, but I never
If-
heard
if-
of that happening at Bayberry. So
I'm not
why-
supposed to participate in
Why
this,
are
but
we
there's-
paying for the
Well-
sins of some?
Sorry, but you're not allowed.
Well, I think we're gonna be
Anyway,
going over.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
so
your
then
time.
we'll have the public hearing on that, you know.
Good evening, everybody. Barbara Leary, Seville. Quick question, actually two. Scott Morgan, is he no longer working with the township at all? Is he gone?
He,
Was that a comment on that?
he was,
Personnel
it's a
and-
personnel
I don't
issue,
know
but
where we're allowed to comment.
he did resign, it's public
Okay.
record from his OEM job, yes.
The only reason I'm asking, on the website, under personnel, he's listed, and so in the Office of Emergency Management, he is listed as administrator and director. So I'm wondering, and sounds like, Mr. Jones, you're doing a great job getting up to speed with everything. Is there an active job search in light of current events in the world we live in today, and it's hurricane season, et cetera?
Right now, we do have our deputy OEM director, Mike Jones is one of our deputies. We have 3 deputies.
Okay,
They are doing a stellar job.
agreed.
We are looking at a couple options, and that's going to be something that we're going to address, I think, in closed session. Yes. That's one of our closed session items. We do not talk personnel in a public.
Is there going to be a job posting, or are you hiring? Are you looking out? I'm just questioning what's.
That is an option.
Okay, that is an option.
That is an option.
Okay.
We're
And,
looking at maybe hiring somebody. We're looking, another option is joint services with another municipality, or promoting somebody in-house. So we are looking at options.
that's wonderful. So I know, and Mr. Pancoast said the website's going to be revised. Will the personnel be updated as well?
You can do that.
That was already updated. I had communication with Barbara over the weekend while I was on vacation, and hadn't realized that one of our pages did not get updated with the personnel, so that was revised first thing this morning.
And I appreciate you responding to the question. And yeah, just a lot of times, like if you're looking for a directory of who to talk to, you're not sure whether, like I didn't know whether Scott is still here or gone, and people have asked that question to me, does Scott Morgan still work for the township? And I'm like, I honestly don't know. So right now, he is or he's not, yes or no?
He's not.
He's not, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Hi, Tom Sawyer, member of Bayberry Cove, Unit 183. Question I have to ask, I'm kind of curious, I saw all this coming on, came on a little bit late. I guess to understand, when you're in a housing district like we are, that you have a situation where the supervisor or whoever it is looks at all the different places, would happen to know the particular place that we're talking about, I'm talking about is Bayberry, happens to have a situation where it's pretty well known the pipes underground are not in any position to have year-round. Now, I listened to this gentleman a couple months ago, and I think it was 22 times I heard him talk about the students and this, what's going on. We know we can't live here year-round. Why is this such an issue is what I'm trying to understand.
Paul, would you have any interest in addressing that?
I mean, historically, the Township Committee and the Planning Board have both expressed the concerns of this is a seasonal location for camping, not a seasonal home, not for homes. And they've wanted to restrict anything becoming, I think that's what Dan says, evolving to become that. There have been other communities, both in Cape May and Atlantic County, where they have in a campground where the utilities are in similar construction as yours, because of sometimes our winters are a little mild, maybe that the water pipes weren't connected in the main distribution system, but they still had the bathhouse, and they were using the bathhouse as a bathing facility where they didn't necessarily have to have water within that because they could supply their own water jugs. So there's all kinds of ways that different people have tried to wiggle around that. The committee and
Again,
board have felt they don't want to get into that discussion, and that's where it's going. And it also was probably about 15 years ago. Parts of representatives of Bayberry Cove came to this township committee and asked to become a full-time, year-round location. So
that goes to my question.
There's history that Bayberry Cove came to this committee, stood right where you were standing, and asked to become a year-round residence because they felt that because they paid taxes that they should be able to come down.
But I'm going to go back to my statement. The statement is, we have no pipelining in our property to allow us to stay year-round. That's simple enough to understand. Where is the problem? We can't stay there, so why would you even have an issue of people trying to stay there? We locked the gate, we're out of there. As the community itself, I've been there 22 years, and I've yet to see anything like that, so I don't understand why any of our children would even be able to go to school for that purpose alone.
And it's not just you're talking about, we have over 10 campgrounds in the township, over 2,000 campsites. So it's not.
That's a good question.
We have to look at, the committee and the planning board have to look at the totality of the situation, not one individual, but.
Well, wait a minute. If you have trailers, they come in and out, you have houses or permanent little trailers that stay there, it's a big difference. And those differences are where the water lines are and everything along that line are taken into consideration. I just don't quite understand where that has become a really question. It's a question it seems everybody's talking about, but we can't do anything about it. That's all. And I'd like to share that with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello there, George Doherty, Bayberry Cove.
All right, I'm have to step down again.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it short, but anyway, I'm currently the president of Bayberry Cove, and I hear a lot of, with the issues, we've been going at this for about a year and a half. We understand the town's concern. We actually are on the same page. Mr. Dietrich said 15 years ago, people came here and wanted a year-round residency. I've never, ever heard of that.
We did.
Never heard of that. In any board, anything, we've never heard of that. Our infrastructure, water's blown out, gates are locked, we have full-time personnel on site. We've never had an occurrence in almost 40 years of anyone staying there in the winter. What you're presenting, we perfectly get, we're on the same page. We don't want that. We want to be able to do what we have been able to do. And if you want to look at the campgrounds, Bayberry and Oak Ridge, where we own our land, and the other campgrounds in Upper Township, we produce more tax revenue than all the rest of the campgrounds put together. And this has been going on, whether it's illegal or legal, for quite some time. These structures cannot be moved. And it's evolved into a great community. We support Upper Township tremendously. All we're asking is for you guys to think about us in making this
I have a
decision.
question. What particular, so the ordinance now, we're talking about these roof overs. We're not touching your roof overs. I'm trying to figure out where we're going.
Well,
at
what
with
you're
it.
touching is the ability to move forward. Example, I've been there for 15 years. I had an older trailer, fully renovated. I put the bathroom on this side, bedroom on this side, had 4 kids, okay? Wife and I are nurses, we come down there. Many people, we love it. Better layout, much better layout. Does that mean that I'm going to be more likely to stay in my place year round for someone who doesn't have that? But what's happening now is now you're preventing someone from doing what I could have done and resell my property for more than what can go in the current market for that. It's a very extreme situation. We understand your concern, okay? Tonight, conversation here with VRBOs. We don't allow our residents to rent. You're allowed to rent for 2 weeks, that's it. We prevent it. We have so many rules and regulations in our communities to maintain it to be a wonderful seasonal community. No one wants to be full-time, not at all. So we're hoping that when you vote on these amendments, that you consider that and maybe put yourself in our shoes. We're not a campground. Even though we have a license, honestly, we're not, and it hasn't been that way for 40 years. We're not equally, maybe there should be a different ordinance for us,
but that creates a whole different complexity. You're lumping us in with everyone else, and we're suffering because of maybe the 1% that may happen 30 years down the road. And that's, you know, that's the way our community feels, and that's why we're so angry, and that's why we retain counsel to try and work with you guys to allow us to continue what we've been able to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is also for the campground. My name is Peter Delguillon, 95 Point Road in Bayberry. I just want to reiterate what Doc said. This is a great community that we currently in Bayberry. These structures, okay, via either trailer, RV, you know, recreational vehicles, or structures that are built, have not moved unless they're being replaced with something that is either more updated. We have, you know, grandkids. It's a great little, you know, we're on the lake. We have a great pool. You know, when our attorney said, you know, 25 years ago, permits, I'm going to say 1 week before I applied, that was the last one that was able to be built. It's a gorgeous place. You know, trying to do something for myself, for my family. We just want you to, you know, consider our community as being unique. That we, you know, these, you know, structures that are lifted up in the air, in reality, will never be removed without damaging these structures. It could be a RV brought in and then lifted up. By the time you bring it down, you put something else next to it. It's just too much work. You'll never remove that in 24 hours. And if you do, it's because of an emergency. Last thing you really want to do is have a whole bunch of these park models on the highway if there's an emergency anyway. That's the last of my concerns. So if we can just consider that, greatly appreciated. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, Blanche Adams from Steelmantown and representing the Upper Township Business Association tonight. So I just wanted to publicly thank the committee for being so supportive of the role that small businesses play in Upper Township. And I want to also thank Committeewoman Hayes and Mr. DeMarzo for proactively reaching out to our business association to say, how can we be more involved? Our discussion led to the ribbon cuttings that we have planned and the milestone celebrations, and I just want to say how important that is to our business owners. Like the Strathmere United Methodist Church people were saying, they were honored to be recognized, and that's what we heard from our businesses too, that they are honored to be recognized by this committee. So I look forward to those things happening, and I just want to mention the common denominator between the three that we have on deck. So we had Mr. Southard from Fresh Start Contracting, who came here in 2017 to put roots down and raise his children and grow his business. And we have Rosie McCoy coming up, who put the maple tree in a dilapidated shopping center, Cedar Square, because she wants to see that grow, and she has roots here. And we have Mr. Dollard, who moved his store from Atlantic City, where his family did in 1921, and put it in Upper Township, where he's celebrating 100 years. So the common denominator is the love that these businesses have for Upper Township. And I just want to also mention, because as I'm listening here to the campground passion, to Bonnie with her passion for gun violence in the schools, and the VRBO people, the passion is that everyone loves living in Upper Township and they're willing to fight for it. So I just think that that's a wonderful thing to hear, and I thank you as the committee for listening to that and coming up with a solution, and also for supporting our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Blanche.
Natalie Neese, 47629. I'd like to speak with reference to Right to Farm 41C-10.1. March 31st, 2022, I attended the notice public hearing at 11 a.m. Cape May County Ag Board Today, 6/13/2022, I attended the noticed public meeting at 11 a.m., the Cape May County Ag Board. Today, I'm advised by Attorney Battistini, Upper Township has legal representation, King, Barnes, Corrado, and those attorneys don't represent me. Our tax dollars are paying for them. And I also note that Planner Tiffany and the Upper Township Solicitor Dan Young received payments regarding this issue. It's been going on for months. I mean, October, December 2021. And I'd like to know, what's your opinion on the Barnes King Planning and Zoning Upper Township representation?
It's ongoing litigation.
Also, I believe the firm of King Barnes actually represents the local residents, not the township, right?
Well, clearly, I went to a zoning board meeting, and Jeff Barnes is our planning and zoning lawyer. He
Yeah,
is
he
partners with this guy.
Yes, but Rich King represents the surrounding residents, the property owners.
But early on in December, Barnes was involved in all this with the planning and zoning. And I mean, what they're
He
pushing
is
for
the
is to bring
solicitor
this
for
back to
planning
planning and zoning.
Yes, Jeff Barnes is the Upper Township Planning and Zoning Board solicitor, correct. And so in that capacity, he deals with any planning and zoning issues that are faced by the township.
So what's your opinion on Jeff Barnes being involved with this since December?
I don't express any opinion on that.
I'm sorry?
I do not express any opinion on that. He has a role to fulfill as the solicitor for the planning and zoning boards, which he has to do.
So, and our planner Tiffany and our Upper Township Solicitor Dan Young,
Dan Young.
I mean,
is
I'd
not
be
our
clear,
upper-
they received payment. I saw the,
Dan Young is not our Upper Township solicitor, but yes, they have received payment in the past. Dan Young received payment in the past, yes.
so,
Every time Mr. Reeves reviews a file for the township, he receives payment, just like Dan Young did.
Correct, and those bills are also itemized, and you can take a look at what those hours were being generated. But if the gentleman is our planning and zoning attorney, then he's our planning and zoning attorney. And if he's dealing with representing the township in certain capacities relative to the vineyard outside of the planning and zoning board, then he gets compensated. Mr. Young is a special counsel. He gets compensated. But again, the way that I designed the request and was refined by Mr. Reeves, those hours are very itemized now. And you can open request them and take a look at what the man's doing.
Actually, Mr. Young's no longer representing us on this case,
He's the special counsel on the other matter.
but not the winery.
Don't believe so anymore.
No.
Then you
He's
got
only-
transferred.
Mr. Young's only special counsel on the BLM property. But
Okay.
before that, Mr. Young might have had a bill that was associated with this, yes.
okay, well, again, my reference was to the Right to Farm Act 41C-10.1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public?
Hi, good evening. My name is Joe Falls, 3 Bay Area Road. I'm still here in regards to the across the street from me. I just want to say thank you. It was great to hear that we're moving forward with trying to protect the town that we love and everything you guys are doing. We always appreciate it, and I want to welcome Mr. Kazmarski to the zoning because we had spoken a little bit and said he was brand new to it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
And we will get on that, and I thank you for the paperwork you provided.
No, thank you for what you guys do.
Yeah.
Appreciate your work.
Is there anyone else from the public? Hearing no more public portion, or interested, we'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are personnel, contract negotiation for a conflict engineer, special labor counsel, and environmental enforcement potential litigation. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second.
Please call roll.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes?
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Pantos?
Yes.
Mayor Corso?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Take a break.
Take 5.
Quick break.